Today we're going to completely disassemble the Glock 19 Gen 4 slide for cleaning purposes. I bought this used, so I'm going to just take everything out, clean it up real good, and put it back together. So the first thing we want to do to disassemble the slide is remove the rear cover. And the rear cover slides off in this direction. The rear cover is held in place by pressure from a spacer, which is part of the striker assembly. And the striker assembly has a spring which pushes up on the spacer. You just get a little pin punch in here in this gap and push this down. You can see that whole spacer in the back move. And if you put that in there and you press down on it like I just showed you, while you're pressing down, you can push the spacer right out because the pressure has been released. Now keep your thumb over there as you remove, because these two things are spring loaded and they might pop out on you. They probably won't, but they might pop out on you. So we have in here the striker assembly, which just slides right out like that. And then you also have the extractor plunger, and this is just a long rod. It starts here, and you can see the other end of it here. It puts pressure on the extractor, which is right here, to keep it from falling out. So that just pushes down on it, and you can see when you remove this, so we have a little piece of plastic on the end, a spring, and the extractor plunger here. Now these all can come apart. You don't need to take these apart necessarily unless they're real dirty. I just want to show you that it is actually 3 pieces. I'm going to keep this together for now. This isn't too dirty, so I'm not going to worry about that. And now that there is no more pressure on the extractor can now be easily removed. But before you do that, you need to know that this striker safety plunger is also spring loaded. So you want to be careful here that things don't go flying across the room. You can press down on this plunger and your extractor will then fall out, and then gently release the plunger so it doesn't pop out and fly across the room. That can also fall out, but you want to grab it. If it doesn't fall out, and you got a little spring, so that's what that looks like. All right, so now we have removed all the working parts from the slide, and the only other things on the slide are the front sight and the rear sight. I'm not going to remove the rear sight because I don't want to throw it out of adjustment. It just slides out. You can tap it out with a pin punch or use a sight pusher tool to get that out. To remove the front sight on a Glock, there's just a special screw that screws in from inside and holds that in place. This one's a little bit damaged, so I may be replacing that at some point. But for today, I'm just going to show you how to remove it. It's nice to have this special Glock tool that is just right for that very, very small screw in there. It's very difficult to get a hold of that with needle nose or your standard tools. All right, and once you unscrew that, you can see this is what a Glock front sight looks like. It's just plastic. It's got a little white dot on it, as you can see. And the screw looks like this. It's got a very, very thin, tiny head on it. So it's very hard to get without a special Glock front sight tool. All right, now the striker assembly does come apart further than this as well. I wouldn't recommend it unless you find it to be very dirty. So to get this apart, you need to push down on this spring here, and then this little plastic piece will come apart in 2 pieces and kind of fall out. I prefer to use a little bench block. You kind of want to support this metal part, not just the spacer. It makes it a little easier. All right, so I'm just going to put it in this little hole here. You want to grab the very top of the spring just underneath this black. This is called a cup, this black part here. You just want to squeeze the spring just below the cup, and when you push down, you'll see that this cup falls apart. It's 2 pieces, 2 halves, and that just falls out. And then gently let the spring rise up and off the top of the firing pin. So this is the actual firing pin. If you have a Gen 5 Glock, you'll see that this pin is a little bit different. So this is the Gen 4, and then this spacer just comes right off, and now you have everything apart. All right, now that I have this slide taken completely apart, I'm just going to clean up each of these pieces here. Now I'm not going to include the recoil spring and the barrel. The cleaning of these will be covered in my regular cleaning video. So we're just going to clean the parts that we just disassembled from the slide. I use Hops number 9 solvent. I like to use this pump dispenser. It keeps the Hops solvent from getting contaminated because it just pumps up as much as you need. You just press down on the top and it pumps up small amounts at a time up to the top here. So you use this instead of dipping down into the container itself. All right, now using some gloves and some eye protection, I'm going to use solvent, and I'm going to use some cotton swabs to just clean up all these components real quick. Coat each piece a little bit with some solvent, get it clean with these little cotton swabs here. Then I'm just going to wipe them down with a cotton rag, which is just a cut up t-shirt. So a real simple procedure, just get each piece clean, and then we'll go ahead and put it all back together. Get this piece nice and clean, wipe it down real good. Get the firing pin safety plunger clean. Just use the pointed end of this cotton swab to get in there. Clean up this rear slide piece. Wipe this down as well. Now we'll clean the extractor, striker spring. Just get a cotton swab in and out a little bit. Get a little solvent on the outside. Blow out any cotton fibers out of there. This spacer, I'm not going to really put solvent on this. I'm just going to wipe it down with a swab. Now this little spring for the safety plunger, a pipe cleaner is the way to go. Put a little solvent on it, slide that pipe cleaner right through it, and then use the dry part of the pipe cleaner to dry it off. Blow out any fuzz, and you're good to go. And these little cups, same thing. I would just use a dry cotton swab on these. They're easy to lose too, so just be careful when you're handling them. All right, now all the pieces are clean. Now I'm going to clean the slide itself. So right now I'm just going to worry about, as I said, the areas where we removed parts today. So I'm going to get in here, down inside where the firing pin goes, and just kind of all around where I see any dirt that I can't normally get to. All right, get that slot cleaned out. We're going to want to get down in this hole here. Yeah, fair amount of crud in there. So I'm going to use a couple of cotton swabs to get that nice and clean out of there. And then use a dry swab to kind of finish it off. We also want to get in the extractor slot right here as good as possible. And we also want to get the breech face, which is right here where the firing pin comes through. And a couple of dry swabs in there to get it all cleaned up. All right, now we want to get into the striker or firing pin channel. All right, so just get in there, swirl it around a little bit and try and get that as clean as you can. We're going to hit this a couple of times with a couple fresh swabs right here, and then put a dry one in there, get all the solvent and last amount of dirt out of there. And lastly, we want to get down into the extractor plunger hole right here. And pretty much the only thing that's going to fit down there is a pipe cleaner. All right, I like to use these Otis pipe cleaners. Get a little solvent on it and you can put that down through there. And that's going to come all the way through, as you can see. And then just put the dry end of the pipe cleaner in there to finish getting it all nice and clean. All right, and then blow out to get any of the cotton swab fuzz out of there and the pipe cleaner fuzz out of there. And then just go over it with a rag. And again, you don't have to go to these lengths that I'm going to, but if you really want to get it clean, this is what I do from time to time. Now that we've cleaned the slide and all the parts we took out, let's reassemble. All right, first let's reassemble the firing pin assembly. Take your firing pin and get the spacer and just put the firing pin into the spacer like that, real simple. Hold it that way, kind of support it the back here. Get your spring. Now this particular spring does not have an end that is different from the other. If your spring has a complete circle on one end but not on the other, maybe the other end kind of ends just, like that up in the air, you definitely want to have a nice complete circle of spring on the end that faces up. So when you put this on, for this cup to hold on to, you definitely need to have a complete circle of metal on the very end here. You want to support this lug, not the spacer, so it's easiest if you kind of put this on something that's going to support this lug. You could use one of these, or you could put it on the edge of a book, on the side of the table, whatever. But you want to be able to push down on the spring without this pin going down on you. So next we want to put the cups in. So get these two cup halves ready to go, and then grab the spring right at the top. Push it down till it's down past this shoulder here. Get one half of the cup, kind of pinch it in the back behind your finger. So my finger's kind of holding it in place. And then get the front half. Put that on there. So you have the two halves together, and then slowly release the spring until it surrounds the cups and holds them together just like that. So it looks like one plastic black piece. When you're done, it should look just like this. All right, and that's the striker assembly. All right, next we're going to reinstall the extractor and the firing pin safety plunger into the slide. You want to take the safety plunger and the spring, put those together, and then we want to put this assembly into the hole right here. So you want to carefully put it in to make sure the spring doesn't fall out. You can kind of look in the side there and see. All right, everything is in there like that. All right, so once you have that in place, before you put the extractor in, make sure you have your finger over top of this plunger so that it doesn't come out. All right, and then this extractor goes in this way with this little circle side goes right into this hole here. All right, so when you put the extractor back in, just put it in like that. Get it nice and flat, and if you push down real far on this plunger, the extractor will kind of sit in a little bit further. So it's a little bit down past flush right there. So gently let go of the plunger because it's kind of locked in with the extractor. Now just be careful here because that could pop out and go flying across the room. Once that's locked in place, take the metal side of this assembly and put that down in first. All right, so this black piece is sticking up in the back. And you can see the end of it right here coming down onto the extractor, and that's going to hold everything in place. But again, be careful because until you have the cover back on, things could really pop apart. All right, so the next thing we want to do is insert the striker or firing pin mechanism, and that just goes in right here. And by the way, you don't want any lubrication down inside these pieces here because if they get bogged down with carbon buildup that's sticking to some oil that you have in there, it's going to bind things up. So no lube is necessary in these areas. All right, and once you have everything sitting in like this, the last thing we need to do is put this cover back on. The little edges of the cover here slide into these slots right here. So if you just start putting it into the slot, it's not going to go very far because the spacer's in the way. So just start it into the slot, put a little pressure with your thumb, and then get a pin punch or something to push the spacer down. Push it down gently, straight down. And then when you get it down far enough, you'll be able to push the cover in a little bit further, and now it's going to hold the spacer down, but you still have this plunger in the way. So keeping pressure with your thumb, push that plunger down, and then you can get that to close a little further, and now you can just push it, snap it all the way back into place. And now your firing pin right here, you can feel the pressure, it's pushing back. It will work like that. The next thing you want to test real quick here is to make sure that this plunger is working right. So when this is working right, you shouldn't be able to push the firing pin to come out the breech face right there. So if I push this forward, nothing happens. If I press down on this plunger and then I push the firing pin forward, it's going to come through the breech face, as you can see right there. All right, so when you push this back out, that plunger pops up a little bit and you can't push it back through. And that's just a quick test to make sure that everything's back in place. All right, and your extractor should be in there, should look like that. The extractor hook should be right there like that. There should be no gap between this cover and the slide here to make sure it's in all the way. All right, and we are good to go, except for the front sight. I'm gonna put that back on. Goes on that way with the dot facing the back. And then you just get the screw in your tool, line it up nice and straight, nice and gentle. Make sure it goes in straight. Push your sight down into the hole, and then just snug it up. Don't make it too tight because it's only plastic that you're screwing into. So if you make it too tight, it's going to strip that. So just snug that up and it's going to look just like that. All right, and there you have it. Your slide is now completely reassembled and ready to be put onto the frame.